Hey guys, just wanted to do my reaction video to The Flash, Season 5, Episode 14, Cause and XS. So, last week's episode, Goldface, you had Barry and Ruff going undercover in this criminal ring to try to get a device that was supposed to be used to subdue Cicada from a crime lord known as Goldface, who was basically supposed to be Emmett Black's ex-girlfriend and took over her portion of the criminal underworld after she went MIA at the end of Season 4. And he ended up being 10 times better than Emmett Black. He's played by Damian Porter, who actually played Thanos in the mid-credit scene for Marvel's The Avengers back in 2012. And he make a pretty good bad guy in this, in the whole episode, Barry and Ralph were like their powers to suppress was metacups, and they were forced to get involved in this ring where they're supposed to steal 3D printers for organ donors before he gets to a hospital in order to get the weapon that Barry and Ralph needed. Barry was reluctant to do it, but decided he had to compromise his morals in order to finally stop Cicada. Ralph felt guilty into being like the devil on his shoulders in convincing him into doing that. In which, when he realized that the 3D printer was supposed to be used for the organ donors were supposed to be children and toddlers, you can go through with it. He freed Barry, and they end up having this montage where they were shoot out of these laser guns that both sides had. They had it for set to kill. And almost had an explosive, and had the power to kind of just blow up the target where Barry and Ralph sat there from stun. And this got a lot of criticism for being too much like something out of like a laser tag. And I guess given the lighting that they were wearing vests, everyone was wearing vests, like the lighting and the lighting of the scene, that I could kind of see that. But personally, my mind went to Star Wars, especially the lasers firing off. The shootouts from when they're firing, their lasers. When the Rebel Alliance was firing at stormtroopers, especially since sparks were going off as they were shooting. So, I guess I can see where they're coming from, and they felt kind of like it was kind of cheesy. But in my personal opinion, it kind of felt more like my mind went to Star Wars. I liked how when Goldface realized that they were not on his side, and he was monologuing about how he was going to try to kill them. They end up taking out pistols and shooting shooting him and stunning him to the ground. He ended up having gold under his skin that gave him some level of invulnerability and healing factor, and was able to repel gold whips that was able to choke Ralph. But Barry tricked him into electrocuting himself and subduing him and stopping his ring, where I guess he was presumably arrested, and they didn't get the weapon, but he was presumably his criminal ring was taken down. And Iris, being the intrepid reporter, and because starting up the Central City Citizen, it wasn't being with much fanfare. He started to investigate more about Orland Dwyer. He even managed to go to his house to try to interview him. He tried to he was supposed to pass himself off as a normal guy, but he was still doing this whole squinting, contorted face and talking like this, and no, let's finish all your questions now, and still kind of coming across like a constipated version of Christian Bale's Batman. And props to Candace for still being able to play off of what was given a very horrible performance. And there was a scene where she was basically realized that he tried to keep her from escaping. He was chasing him throughout his home. Iris was able to mace him, and then when he traced him to a kitchen, was about to stab him with the lightning-shaped dagger. She ended up stabbing him in the very wound where the shrapnel from DeVoe's satellite was embedded in his chest. And she's like, "We're gonna stop you," and then she runs away again. This is probably the third or fourth fucking time where a character could have subdued him or had him restrained and didn't. But at least at least Iris was able to figure out how he was able to, weaken him long enough to submit, admit the metahuman cure to take away his powers, the stabbing him in his chest wound. And then you had Nora at the behest of Eobard Thawne to keep them off both of their trails, manipulating him into falling in love with Irene Renee Adler, at least like on Earth 1. And then you realize that his 5 ex-wives were all doppelgangers of Irene Adler, basically the love interest for Sherlock Holmes in, various incarnations, so he kind of ran with it here. But then it turns out like all of his ex-wives were all doppelgangers of the same woman. And he eventually, was able to get the number of the Earth 1 version of Renee Adler, who turned out to be a metahuman with telekinesis. And he decided to, take his focus off investigating Nora and trying to protect her from Cicada, because he figured that she was going to be the next person on his hit list, and succeeded in, succeeded in throwing Sherlock off Nora's trail, and then Eobard says like, "Oh, now we can continue what we started." And I swear to God, like, I would have think this was, very sweet of Nora to do it if it wasn't incredibly manipulative and just naturally following, Thawne's playbook to the letter. And I mean, I was a fan of her in like season 4 and the first half of season 5, but like starting from the back half of the season, she's become incredibly wretched. She's become like more and more unlikable, from her being completely petulant and immature, her grudge against Iris for weeks at a time, for just saying like, oh, she's such a shitty parent, she's so manipulative and controlling. And then we found out in memorabilia that she was a better parent to Iris than she gave her credit for. It was like putting the lying to her, putting the. It was just like all she did was like hide the fact that Barry and her dad and the Flash were one and the same, and putting the power deafening chip inside of her was the only dubious thing she did as a parent, as I originally believed. So it was like, okay, not only is she the pathological liar, but an ingrate. Then it was like her whole like how she mishandled the whole situation with the weather, which nearly drove her further down the path of villainy when she was trying to redeem herself, and then what she was doing with Sherlock. And it was and people had pointed this out, like people I'm following and like internet friends have pointed this out. It's like she stayed mad at Iris for weeks, maybe even years at a time, for the power deafening a chip and stuff that she did, and basically used her as an emotional punching bag for having a missing dad. But she forgave her grandmother's killer over the span of a day. And also there's the other factor where she mentioned that in the season premiere, it's like Barry disappeared in 2024. She was born a few years before that, like 2 or 3 years before that, in the 2020s. She's from the year 2049, so that would put her in her late 20s. But she has the mentality and maturity of a fucking 12-year-old at 27. It's like at that that flashback sort of in the memorabilia, where it's like she still had the same maturity that she did at that age in like 2030 or whatever, when she was visiting that museum as a child, that she does as an adult. And it's like, I don't know why the writers are characterizing her this way. I don't know how much of it is the writing or the acting, but I don't know why she's characterized this way, because it's like, and they can't attribute it to the fact that it's like, oh, she grew up without a dad and whatnot, when it's the fact that it's like Barry grew up without his dad also, because she was framed for his mom's murder. Iris grew up without her mom. Wally grew up with, Francine, who was like a recovering drug addict, and he had to, do drag races and whatnot to, pay for her medical bills. And he grew up without knowing about, Joe and Iris. And all three of them turned out to be still pretty well adjusted adults in spite of the trauma. They didn't act like immature and petulant. So why the hell is Nora acting this way when she's going through the same situation that Barry, Wally, and Iris have been through? I don't understand it. And it's frustrating, and the reason why I'm venting is because of the fact that she was a breakout character for me in season 4. In the few appearances she had, season 4 was basically a dog shit season, in which I would insist was the writing and storytelling was painfully lazy, the comedy was cringe-inducing, and the whole season was basically a crime against art. And it's like, if it wasn't for Nora, I would have quit the show after season 4. She's the reason why I stayed on, and it's kind of frustrating that a breakout character that made me, give the show another chance when I didn't think at the time it deserved it. And season 5 has been an improvement over season 3 and 4, in spite of its pacing issues with plot points. It's like ironically frustrating that they made her progressively less likable as the season's gone on, to the point where it's ironic that it's like, if somebody told me that I was gonna that Ralph was gonna be more likable than Nora come season 5, I would have thought they were out of their minds. But that's exactly what's played out. It's like, I feel like they've done right by all the characters this season. Ralph substantially, improved significantly as a character. Iris is, going back more into her journalism for the first time in years on the show. Everybody's spending more time outside of Star Labs, utilizing their respective skills. And I mean, I know people complain that we never get to see enough of CSI Barry, but then I found out through the grapevine that when Grant did a glass half full podcast interview, he said that the reason why the producers stopped focusing on more CSI critical thinking Barry is because he felt like they were becoming more they were making Barry too much like Sherlock Holmes, in spite of Grant's objection. So that's why so the little tidbit for why we barely get to see the CSI Barry as much as people would have liked. So blame it on the producers. And considering Todd Helbig is a showrunner now, I guess he probably carried on the mentality. So, but anyway, Nora's apparently going to be the focus of the episode in a Groundhog's Day like scenario. I don't know whether it's going to make or break the character, redeem the character in any way. If it does, so be it. If not, I won't be surprised. But it was written by Todd Helbing. He's written some of the stronger episodes this season, like the season premiere and the 100th episode. So I'm going to go with open mind and see just how good it is compared to the last couple of episodes.
We have to wait how long before we can use the metahuman cure?
Not even that long.
Cisco.
It's gonna go by like that.
Cisco.
29 days.
A month?
I know, right?
What the fuck?
Just one teeny tiny month until we stop Cicada's purge. Historically speaking, this is way faster than we've ever stopped a big bad. So
In the past, you have a new siren, so now it's time for the art of love.
Caitlin.
I gotta finish working on the device to inject the cure.
Also have to inject the device for the cure.
Iris?
Oh, no, I just saw you, man. I got an article I gotta write. Let me know when Barry gets back.
That's her public profile. But it did happen to have some info on the types of guys that she might be into.
The types of guys that she's into.
Yes, and unfortunately, you are nothing like them. But hey, if you don't want to get a second date, be my guest. Just don't come crying to me when everything inevitably goes horribly, horribly wrong and you die alone. No big deal.
Wow.
Get away from her. She's not who you want.
No, she's not. But you are. Then come and get us.
Told you. Ça va?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm having the most wicked deja vu right now.
It's all right.
I guess Sherlock's not going to be completely off her trail.
Camilla, the thriller.
Cisco? Wow.
Sorry I'm late. I just came from a photo shoot. Things you do for the gram. Am I right? Hey, maybe next time you should be my photographer. What do you think?
So you're,
I'm an aspiring social media influencer. This is my card. You can keep that.
Oh my god, no. Oh no.
Told you.
Cisco! Why can't I fix this?
Are you cyber stalking her?
Kind of guy she's into.
No, I'm not stalking her. It's her public profile.
Guys! I'm sorry, but you're just gonna have to stay here.
Just tell her the truth.
Sometimes, or just one of you. Sometimes Cecile. But every time there's at least one.
I thought I was having deja vu. I keep seeing my date with Camilla. Again and again, me failing miserably every time by using these. Not having deja vu. I'm vibing the past hour over and over.
Yeah,
How many times has this happened?
52. 52?
This is one of those fixed points the legends theorize, isn't it?
What's happening? Please tell me they actually cast him, for fuck's sake. Come on.
Told you.
God damn it. There's nobody pragmatic coughs.
No dark matter anywhere. Dwyer's gone.
It breaks. Now you can try and reset the timeline, try and fix it, but no matter how hard you try, it's never going to be exactly how it was. Yeah, it seems like things worked out this time, but that's not always going to be true. And it's impossible to know how these changes are going to unfold, the ripples you'll cause, whose life you're going to affect. No one can do that.
No one?
No. We're not gods, Nora. We've just been given extraordinary abilities.
Jay's combo. Good on you, man. Good on you. Please determine us to reverse.
Thawne, I need to know we're not making this worse. Tell me you know what you're doing.
I am the only speedster who knows what he's doing! Stick with the plan. Follow my instructions. We'll defeat Cicada. We'll destroy his dagger. And then we will save your father.
Okay, so yeah, we got to see Nora take advantage of. Yeah, it basically kind of drove home what we already thought, that her reversing time was a variation of Barry going back in time and doing a whole Groundhog's Day mental time travel scenario that was more like it's like a slightly less. I guess her is a variation of a slightly less convoluted variation when Barry went back in time at the end of 115 or during the second annual crossover where the heroes fought Vandal Savage. Where he saw two of them, and then like the other. It's less convoluted, that's for sure. The fact that it was kind of weird how like every time she went back in time, that she never really let on as pull anybody aside and say, listen, this is what's been happening, and I'm gonna try to reverse time. This and this has happened, and not like anybody in on the loop, instead of trying to keep everybody in Star Labs, keep them from leaving and stuff like that. And it's like the fact that she's keeping them out of the loop, without letting them in on something, is the reason why. What's to stop him from going to help her when Cicada kidnaps somebody in order to lure Nora, or at least one other person who comes to help her, into a trap and get them killed. But it's like, it's the thing. It's like, I've just watched, I saw an early sneak preview of Happy Death Day 2, the sequel to Happy Death Day. I'll do a review for that movie in the next day or two. And it's like the main protagonist was like letting people in on the time loop stuff, and how she kept trying to and the scenario she was in fairly quickly, instead of just kind of prolonging it and just kind of keeping her in the dark until the between the vibes and her general behavior, that the whole team was able to deduce is like, oh, you're reversing time, you're trying to induce a scenario, and they were able to finally work together in order to take advantage of using their powers, and with a dagger out of proximity and Nora's reversing time abilities, to have the dagger hit him, and he still flies away like every fucking time. It's like there is no goddamn reason he should have been captured. He should have been captured in the 100th episode, but everybody keeps acting like they have their thumbs up their asses, and they don't have the good sense to bring metahuman cups or something to restrain him. 100. They send the dagger into space. You'll be able to call it back. It's one thing where it's like, why didn't Cisco breach it to another Earth? And even when he was calling back from space, all of Team Flash that was out there fighting him were just like looking up in the sky and just staring, like they have their thumbs up their asses, instead of one of them, using their powers to like subdue Cicada before the dagger came back in proximity of the hospital they were fighting. It's 5'11". Barry was about to kill Cicada, and Nora stopped him from doing it. He just walked over to, go and hug her, but it's like, okay, how about, put medicuffs on him or run his ass into the pipeline and get him away from the dagger. But it's like, no. 513, you have Iris stabbing him with the pen, trying to fight his way out of his Dwyer's house. He's like, we're going to beat you. Runs off. Doesn't try to restrain him, knock him unconscious, keep macing him. It's like, hey, Barry, I got him. I'm still macing him, blah, blah, blah. He gets away. This episode, they finally able to subdue him. Barry is within minutes of bringing back the cure to subdue him. No one has the good sense to, vibe him into the goddamn pipeline when he gets back, administer the cure. Move on to other stuff, like what's going on with Thawne? Is he really on the level? What kind of bigger plans does he have? The more backstory into what's going on with how they've got into contact with one another and into their arrangement and. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this in other videos. I wouldn't mind, episodes in which we had, Barry and Nora going to the future after the Thawne revelation, having to fight the future Grace Gibbons as Cicada, because as a memorabilia, they shaped her up to be a more memorable villain and a better villain than her own uncle. And Look, I like this season. I'm trying to enjoy it, but it's like, again, it is not. It is slow. It has pacing issues. It is not moving the plot forward as much as it should. This one episode did nothing to progress the plot forward. That even though Barry used the coffee cup analogy and gave her the same lecture that Jay Garrett gave to him in 302 Paradox, he was saying it ended up being oh, you're lucky that this doesn't have any consequences to it. Where it's like, this should have consequences to it. Like, why? Then what was the whole point of the episode? And it was weird that it's like, it's weird that all of a sudden that apparently last week's episode was supposed to get Sherlock off of Nora's trail, but because of what she was doing now, it's like now he's back focusing on it again. So it's kind of what was the point of all of that? And I had a good time watching this episode, but it's not a good episode, and it's probably easily and hands down the weakest episode of the season, and the most pointless is chances are you can skip this episode and you don't miss a damn thing. They've had other filler episodes before this, but it feels like out of all of them, this had it's made the least effort to progress the plot forward. And it's like I said, you can skip, you can take or leave this episode. You can watch it for a good time, but in terms of the overarching story narrative, it's skippable. And I feel like the fact that there were no consequences to this entire thing made it feel kind of pointless. And it's even Legends of Tomorrow had a similar scenario, and that still has some consequences, or at least has some character development. Maybe not necessarily consequences, but this gave some character development for Zari. I didn't feel like it gave any character development for Nora, because it feels like there were no consequences to her actions. Besides, you just work together, tell him about the time loop, and then you were able to find a way to stop Cicada, but then you used to let him escape again. So, pointless episode, fun to watch, but it's like I said, people complain about this, how they had other filler episodes that moved the plot forward. No, this is the filler episode that did absolutely nothing for this overarching story. The only good silver lining to this that we have either we're gonna get another filler episode, but it's gonna be like King Shark versus Gorilla Grodd as of highly anticipated. So that's gonna be fun to watch. But this needs to pick up and deal with the cicada stuff and reveal what's going on with Nora and Thawne, and how that's actually they're gonna save Barry from disappearing in 2024. But like I said, this is pretty, this episode, fun but forgettable. It didn't really do anything with the plot, and it's a little disappointing. And I gotta say, it's objectively speaking, like the worst, one of the weakest episodes since the Thanksgiving one. I mean, did you guys enjoy the episode in spite of it? Actually, know what? Just tell me what you thought about the episode. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. I will talk to you guys soon. Stay tuned for my reaction to The Gifted.